Welcome to A.U.M. We are live, and I'm your host, Callie Fedosinko of Callie Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven custom content and advertising. Let me ask you, have you considered doing a webinar, but you don't know where to start? Maybe you've hosted webinars, but you didn't get any guests. Or maybe you find the whole process daunting. Well, you're in luck today because we're talking with Charlie Van Derven from Social Advisors about how to host a webinar from idea to follow-up. Make sure to ask your questions in the comments as we go along. We'll see them on our end and answer them as they come in. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Callie. Great to be here. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Good.
Ready to learn about webinars?
Yeah, excited to talk about it. I think I don't want to position webinars as a standalone, though. That'll be the point of our conversation. Webinars are actually the fourth step of an important four-step sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So while as an advisor, you use a webinar to educate, and that's all well and good, and the marketing behind a webinar helps proliferate your brand.
Yeah.
In the world of business development, which even more than, maybe a thin veil between marketing and business development.
Mm-hmm.
But in the world of business development, the webinar actually becomes a measuring tool as much as anything else. All right.
Oh.
So for a lot of the work that you do for your clients, work we do for our clients, right? A lot of work and time and energy and thought and strategy goes into building the right network. So we can talk about the steps behind the building of that network, but when you market a webinar is really helping you, whether you're nurturing 300 email addresses and LinkedIn connections, or 1,000 or 10,000. The webinar gives those people in your network something to respond to, right? So it's those hand raisers for the webinar that are ready to have a deeper conversation with you. So it's really a way to let your network self-identify. So we love it as a measuring tool as much as anything else.
Yeah. Well, that kind of answers one of my first questions, which was going to be, what's been your experience and running them, and why did you decide to make it part of a designated service?
I've been doing webinars of some sort or another. No, I don't want to say the years because I would date myself pretty good, and I don't, we do certain things to hide that. But even early in my career, working with a website company, we were doing websites for some of the large firms, enterprise programs for Morgan Stanley and RBC and some other firms. We used webinars for promotion, 20 years ago. And so
you were ahead of the time then.
Yeah, right. We were well ahead of it then. Maybe it's 18 years ago or 17 years ago or whatever, but still a long time ago, right? So it's something that I've always used as a business development tool, whether it was my company or a company I was working for.
Yeah.
And it became a really natural addition to everything else that we do for our advisor clients. So and like I say, it's at the end of a business development sequence, right? It's
right.
It starts with, you have to understand your niche audience, right?
Right.
We're going to talk a little about picking a topic in a second, and that's really the most important part about picking that topic, is understanding the audience that you serve. Second, you got to have ways to build that audience all the time, right?
Yeah.
And LinkedIn's awesome. It's not the only way, but it's a simple way.
Right.
But industry events and local networking, and there's lots of ways to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say the most important thing, if someone's thinking about webinars, is, do I have a network to even market my webinar to? Right. If the answer to that is no, then you got some work to do before you really do a webinar. But we can dive into more details there in a second.
Yeah.
You got to be able to nurture that network, like a lot of the content marketing that you guys do for your clients.
Right.
Email marketing. This is all about making sure your brand is present. You're building trust at all times. And then once you've done those first three things, a webinar is a great way, again, to get people in that growing network to self-select for the follow-up, and it's a good way to score them as a prospect.
Which leads me, let's talk about advisors. One of their biggest fears when it comes to webinars is, what if nobody shows up? How do I make sure I get attendees? Is it all about that networking that you're talking about?
Yeah, but even if no one shows up, and for the first one, You might get no one. You might get 2 people,
Yeah.
but you still do it like a coliseum, like you're speaking to a coliseum, right? Just really put it on.
Yeah.
First off, you're recording it, so it creates great content afterwards.
Mm.
If no one's there, what a wonderful place to practice. Also, understand that the webinar itself, that's the culmination of maybe 2 weeks of marketing. When we market a webinar for an advisor client, we put 2 weeks in. It's pretty specific. We can go through what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because we don't do anything an advisor can't do for themselves. We just take the heavy lifting off their hands, right?
Right.
So all of that marketing, right? When you're sending out invites on LinkedIn or you're emailing invites, like all of that marketing has an impact. So there's a lot of advisors out there and other businesses, right? And other services that are, let's say a little bit direct and salesy in their marketing and their approach, right? When you are an educator, it changes the perception of your brand. Right. So the act of marketing a webinar, and don't just do one. Like if you're going to do don't do one, right? Maybe start with quarterly.
Okay.
Maybe work to every other month. Ideally, you're doing 9 a year.
Okay.
I would. So the summer months are a little bit harder to build an audience, and December is also a little bit harder to build an audience.
Right.
So if we've got clients that do 12 a year, right? We've got clients that do them all year. But think of one a month. January through May, and then September, October, November.
Okay.
Right.
And how should I be inviting my audience?
We love LinkedIn events and email.
Okay.
Right.
Do you log in as the advisor and invite people for them?
It can be done that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I know there's some stickiness. Make sure you're checking with compliance.
Sure.
Again, we provide a service in that regard, right?
Yeah.
So an advisor can do the same. So when you set up a LinkedIn event, it's you can set it up through your personal profile. You can set it up to your business profile. If you have a business profile, if you're not a Merrill Lynch advisor, right?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
represented by a much larger company, and you can't have your own business profile, that's fine. You can still market your event through your personal profile. But ideally, you would be setting up on your business profile. And what that allows you to do is, because you have a website link with a privacy policy, you can do more exporting of data off your business profile event than you can your personal profile event.
What kind of data can you export?
You can export, name, address, first, last, position, business, email address, that sort of thing.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Now, when we do the marketing, right, with the use of Zapier, and if Kelly, I'm sure you're very well familiar with Zapier.
I'm not actually.
Oh, okay. So Zapier, basically Zapier allows you to tie technologies together.
Okay, kind of like Zapier.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Zapier.
Got it. Okay.
Yep, same thing, right? Exact same thing. So tomato.
Yeah.
I got it handed to me for saying niche audience instead of niche audience the other day. My friend Cheryl Hickerson was like, "It's niche." Right. So anyway, tomato, right?
Right.
Zapier. So you've got the ability too to actually hook LinkedIn events up to Zoom. Right. So and other technologies.
Right.
One of the big disconnects with LinkedIn events is you can invite somebody on LinkedIn to attend your event, but unless they say yes, if they just say yes, nothing happens. They've got to say yes, click your registration link, and sign up. If you zap those two technologies together,
do it for them.
You can actually integrate that so that they automatically, so they're pulling LinkedIn information and automatically registering them in Zoom. So they're getting those prep emails, those reminder emails before the event.
Right.
That's a really important step, because you could have, 30 people say yes on Zoom, but if nobody registers on LinkedIn rather, but if nobody registers on Zoom,
they're not going to get your email.
They're dead in the water, right? So so that's a really important step. And for anybody who wants more information on this stuff, obviously, you just hit me up on LinkedIn and we can schedule 30 minutes. I'll show you how to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Would you say Zapier, you can do this with a free profile, or do you have to have a paid profile?
I don't, we have a paid profile, Callie. So I would love to answer that question, but I don't know. It's been years since I've used a free profile, so I'm not even sure. But I think like $20 a month, and we use a lot of Zaps at $20 a month, right? So it's not, so it's not a lot of money. It's certainly worth it.
Yeah.
The other way is email. So for those who are watching us right now, the single most important thing I believe that you can do is build an email list. And it's not just for webinar marketing, though that's a big component of it, right? So email statistically converts at 6x over social media. Now you say that and you go, wow, right? But it makes sense, right? I mean, social media is about brand building. It's about building rapport. It's about building relationship. I would highly likely go on social media, maybe some soft calls to action, right? But I really reserve those harder calls to action for email. Right? When we run a promo, we don't run our promos across social media. That's about one-to-one relationship.
Right.
We run our promos through our email marketing. Right. So for us, I mean, the stats are whatever accepted stats are 6x conversion. Ours are more than that. Ours are 10 or 12x email conversion. What social does. And so building an email list is like these, I think from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
Callie, I'd love to get your take on this, right? I think building an email list is the most important thing that you can do daily.
Oh, definitely. Because you control the list, right? You maintain it. Although I will say because that's what I always hear is like with social media, you can't control what they're getting. You can in email. And that's mostly true, except that you have to be careful you're not going to their spam folder and that you're not blacklisted.
Yeah, got to be careful with your domain name for sure.
Yeah.
So when I say build an email list, I did not say buy one.
Yes, that's important.
Organic opt-in email list. So that chances are on an opt-in. Now, obviously the Gmails of the world and the and the Outlooks of the world certainly are tighter and tighter on that promotional stuff. I see a lot less promotional emails than I did in the past.
Yeah.
But we still get, we send emails out. We still get open rates of 35%. Pretty consistently. And even for those that don't open it, the subject line is impactful.
Right.
But to your point, a good day on social media means 30% of your network saw your post or 10% of your network saw your post, right?
Right. Yeah. If you're not advertising, it's very, very small number of people. I think it's 6% of your followers will see your content.
That's crazy. And I'll tell you what, I mean, with a network of 10,000 on LinkedIn, a lot of my posts are smaller than that.
Yeah.
Or depending on the nature of the post. And what's weird, Kelly, what's weird is, I was on this road trip the last couple of weeks here. And I made 2 or 3 posts on LinkedIn about it, and it was a wonderful time. That's the stuff or if, we celebrate a team member, or, it's when you think you're doing something good for your network. Hey, here's your 4 steps to blah, 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 whatever that might be. That's the stuff that gets throttled.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's that really social component that gets more exposure.
A personal touch. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it's the stuff that gets throttled on social media that really performs well in email. It's that promotional kind of, conversion oriented stuff that goes
right.
With email. Yeah. So, so combination of the two, but I really think that, really concentrate on building your email list. And Callie, I know you're an expert at this. If you need advice from me, I'm open to it too.
Yeah.
Like lead magnets, which we don't call them lead magnets when we're talking to the public. Right on our website, it's called resources.
Right.
My email going out tomorrow is about 21 things every advisor should automate. It's a resource. It's a resource, a white paper, or a lead magnet that's built on the website, right? So anybody already in our email list, so we're not attracting emails per se, but anybody who downloads that, and we'll get a lot of them. We got, the list is about 17,000 active emails.
Right.
So we'll get 1,000 downloads of this thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Those 1,000 people will receive an email sequence that leads to a call to action. So anyway, that's the value of an email.
Yes. Those drip campaigns are so important.
They work so well. Yeah.
And speaking of email, for all of our listeners, if you're not getting our newsletter, you can sign up for it in the link below.
Fox News or something, right? You got the ticker. Callie, how awesome is that? This is a great
So
live
fancy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, for those advisors who are watching and looking to do a webinar, what is the next step for them? Like, how do they select a topic? I mean, I myself, I'm trying to write a presentation, and I get stuck, and I do this all the time. Any suggestions?
So I want to go back to the step one that we talked about, right? The whole process begins around understanding who your audience is.
Right? Amen.
Yeah, right. So, we actually, I'll tell you, it's one of the first questions I ask a prospect. Who do you work with?
Yeah.
And it's a question I've been asking for 20 years, right?
Right.
And 80% of the time, the person says anyone with money, if they can fog a beer, whatever these cliche responses are.
Retirement.
Yeah, retirees and pre-retirees, right?
Yep.
It's not a niche, right? That's basically everybody.
Yes.
Those are non-starters for us. We won't work with somebody. We'll help you develop a niche, right? If you're comfortable without one, but if you're not open to that, then then that's some we can't even do it, right?
Yeah.
So go back to your niche. What are the greatest needs? What are the questions? What are the questions you get asked most often? Think also in terms of time of the year, right? So back to school time. If your particular niche has concerns about education for their teenagers, certainly back to school time is a time for that topic. Now, if you have a niche, right, and you work with medical professionals, make sure you put that in the title. I want it to speak directly to you, right? I want that audience to read your title and go, "Oh, that's for me." That's not a general presentation. That's for me.
Yeah.
End of year tax time. Some of these are topics that everybody's doing, but make sure that you tailor that in some way to that niche. Now, do you work with corporate executives? Well, then, stock options and RCUs and all these other things, right? These are things that are going to speak directly to that audience. So anyway, that would be my recommendation is go back to that niche audience. If you get on a good cadence, start quarterly, right? You don't need to start more than quarterly because it does take time and energy. So you have to come up with 4 topics a year.
Yeah, right.
The reason you get narrow on your audience is, number 1, remove the competition. Number 2, speak their language, right? So by getting narrow on that audience, you can come up with 4 topics pretty easily.
Right. Now, how narrow are we talking? So let me give you an example. I work with RIAs who have about 6 people who work for them, and I want them to have a niche, right?
Yeah.
But I could take it further, and I could say I only work with RIAs who are led by women or who work with women. Yeah. So have you found a sweet spot of how narrow to go?
Off the cuff, I want to say the more narrow, the better. Now, I don't know if I practiced that exactly.
Sure. Well, maybe specifically when it comes to a webinar, is it better to hyper focus? Like, okay, maybe I'll work with people who are outside of this group, but my webinar, I'm going to focus on them. Like I'll work with men and women, but do I make a webinar that's just for women to attract them?
I don't know that I would.
Yeah.
I don't want to alienate any part of my audience. And perhaps you're not alienating the men in your audience by focusing on just the women. Yeah. Also, I want attendees. I want to see who's interested in the topic, right?
Right.
So if I get too narrow, listen. Like the advisors we both work with, I know you and I are in business, right?
Right.
And so I don't want to limit the ability to do that. And so maybe I don't want to get so narrow that I've got 300 invitations to send out instead of, women being about 15% of the market right now, maybe as high as 20% of the market.
Right.
You're cutting 80% of that marketing out then. I don't know that I would do that. But I also think that if we compared numbers and there were 10,000 opportunities out of 100,000, then maybe, yes, that's acceptable.
Right. Okay.
So perhaps that's a case by case.
Sure.
That being said, okay,
Mhm.
that being said,
Yeah.
I work with an advisor in Naples, Florida,
Yeah.
and he's a CEPA, right, Certified Exit Planning Advisor, and so he's prospecting business owners.
Mm-hmm.
He has like basically its geographic footprint first,
Mm.
and then he prospects in a handful of different industries.
Mm.
Now, here's my contrary to what I just said to you, right?
Yeah.
So he went to AED. I don't even know what it is. Association of maybe equipment distributors. It's heavy equipment people, right? It's like,
Mm.
Kubotas and Cats and these big heavy equipment
Mm-hmm.
dealerships that he really focuses on. And he's been focusing on this association
Mm.
for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, because he's building a brand with this very small subset of people,
Mm-hmm.
it might be a good idea.
Right. Right.
We
That makes sense.
I work with a coach, right? A coach that serves financial advisors.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll keep using SEPA. The Exit Planning Institute is the body that certifies the certified exit planning advisor. Not that they followed this, but I told them once upon a time, listen, if you just focused on being the coach for SEPAs, you
Mm.
kill it. There's like 6,000 or 7,000 SEPAs in the country. It's a
Yeah.
lot of resale opportunity. Like,
Right.
concentrate, you can really build a brand there.
I think that's a great point into back to the niches, because I think one of the benefits is that you can make connections with people and become a preferred partner because you're working with that specific niche.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that. And so maybe you're doing a webinar with, I brought up Cheryl earlier, who makes fun of me for niche versus niche, right?
Yeah.
Maybe females in finance. You're doing a webinar for females in finance. Then in that case, yes, obviously.
Right.
I'll get narrow on women. Yeah. So, but I think really look at what that audience is, and that's where you're going to pick your topics out of.
All right. We've got our topic. How do we create an engaging presentation? Should we have a script? Should we have a PowerPoint? Do you do that for people?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we do build slide decks. Now, there's great AI tools out there, right? So Beautiful AI is a great tool that I've used a handful of times that I really, really like. Don't build a PowerPoint if you're not going to use an AI tool like Beautiful AI, Beautiful.ai.
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier to build your slides in Canva and export those slides to PowerPoint.
Okay.
So that's a pro tip is don't build it in PowerPoint. You can always export to PowerPoint. Canva's got if you're not using Canva, and I know this isn't for you, but for your anybody else listening, Canva's awesome. Like really, honestly, Canva's awesome. So so many templates already built out that you can drop your logo on and drop your brand colors into. Now, as far as a script, I don't use one, but I've been doing this for 17, 18 years, right? So number one, check with compliance. Compliance may be a requirement that you have a script. So check with compliance. And you may have to script that out. You may have to have a recording for them. Some compliance departments don't allow you to record it. Others do. In the world of RIAs,
right,
you have a lot of flexibility on both sides of that. If you're a subscriber to a platform like FMG, everybody's using the same decks, but there's pre-built decks that you can drop your logo onto. So that, that makes your life pretty easy there as well.
Right.
And yes, we can help and design a deck. Now, I don't want to get so focused on the deck, right? You are the commodity. The deck is not the commodity. I think a lot of people put so much on a deck that they lean on that, end up reading it. It's not a good presentation, right? So
I've done that myself.
It's easy to do when you get started, right?
Yeah.
I want to say all these things. And so, no, we are subject matter experts, right?
Yeah.
The advisors we serve are subject matter experts.
Right.
You know your talking points. I did not script anything for our webinar conversation. I read through, Haley sent me some questions ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
I read them. I said, okay, cool.
Nothing crazy in there.
Nothing crazy in there, right? So it's lean on your knowledge, lean on your experience. It's going to become a lot better presentation when you do that, a lot more engaging. You don't look so stiff, like you got to hit your talking points. But anyway, so lean into that experience and that knowledge that you have.
Yeah. Is there a preferred number of slides per minute?
0. No, I'm kind of just kidding when I say that. But do you know that this is a much better, compelling, like this conversational aspect is better?
Sure.
So let's get off the deck for a second, because I know we're bumping up against time pretty quick here.
Yeah.
Point I want to make, right?
Yeah.
In growing your email list, let's back up to where we were 20 minutes ago, right? In growing your email list, Haley, I love doing joint webinars. And you and I will get one done here. We were planned for December, and then we had to pump that, so we'll get one done here in the coming months. I love a joint webinar for a couple different reasons, right? Number one, when you and I do a joint webinar, you're going to market it, and I'm going to market it, right?
Exactly.
So you're going to get email addresses out of my network. I'm going to get email addresses out of your network, right?
Right.
The beauty of a joint webinar, when someone attends from your network, you've built a lot of trust. Person, that trust transfers to me. Someone attends from my network, that trust transfers to you, right?
Yeah.
OPN, I think Tom Poland's an old marketer that coined OPN, other people's networks. So yes, if you need to have a deck to keep you on pace, awesome.
Yeah.
I would say less is more in that case. Even better is setting up a joint webinar.
Yeah.
Right, where there's other people marketing it. You're going to have greater attendees. It takes the pressure off of you for having to build out the deck or having to talk for 45 minutes versus, you can, now it becomes conversational.
Right.
I'm a big fan of a joint webinar. So if you got a CPA or someone else in the industry that or someone that serves the same audience you do, that's important. And make sure they're aware that they're not a guest so much as they're a helpful marketing conduit. They're a guest, but they're it's something you're doing together because you guys are both going to benefit.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I love that. When you have that, like I'm doing a panel with a couple people in February 27th. We got a panel with Angela and Elise and Nikki. And what's great about that, we're going to have a slide in a title slide and a closing slide. That's it. The rest of the conversation.
What's the panel on?
Event marketing.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So we'll start marketing that. We do a 2-week marketing cycle.
Yeah.
Where we'll send out a couple hundred invitations via LinkedIn every day for 10 business days, and then 2 emails. So the marketing of that, you'll start to see that pop up February 13th.
Awesome. Yeah. So everyone go find Charlie on LinkedIn so that you can find this panel about events planning, because all those people that you listed are phenomenal marketers.
Yeah, they're cool.
Including yourself, of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you. I love, so, this is behind the scenes. So the people who are watching us right now don't know it unless they're in it. Yeah. But we got this Orbits marketing group that meets once a month. And Kaylee, I'll tell you, I love it.
Yeah. Me too.
I love it. I think it's so wonderful. That idea exchange is awesome.
Yeah. It's like our own little mini conference.
Yeah. I really do. I really look forward to that call every month. So cool.
Yeah. Okay. One more question for you before we close out is give us an idea of follow-up after the webinar, because, we've got these emails. Is there a sequence of emails that you recommend or that you produce for your clients?
Sure. So the recording, yes, get the recording out. The recording is great for, splicing up into video content on your social platforms. Get it up onto YouTube, give it a good description, make sure that stuff is tagged appropriately. What we do is we actually load that recording onto the blog page of our website. So when we send people back to the recording of the webinar, they're going to our website to consume that, not YouTube. So they can be, they can interact with other things that we're doing.
Right.
Potentially a schedule button, potentially a download button. Now, depending on the topic of that webinar, in the webinar, oftentimes I'll say, hey, you guys, we got a free giveaway. Go check out this one thing. And then they've got to download that one thing. So we've got a pre-built sequence for anybody that downloads that one thing that pertains to the webinar, right? So with the 2 or 3 email sequence that'll lead to a call to action. So really, with that download that we promote in the webinar, really we do a lot of recording, just the recording follow-up.
Right.
And letting that sequence behind the download take care of itself. Once upon a time when I had people doing outbound sales, which I don't anymore. And
what kind of sales?
Outbound sales.
Oh, outbound. Got it.
Phone calls, banging the phone with the CRM. We won't do that anymore. So
smile and dial.
Yeah, any advisors on my CRM, don't worry about that. It won't happen anymore. So we used to follow up on those webinars.
Yeah.
As a direct outreach. More and more, I feel like that becomes invasive. Right. So if they're ready for you, if you do a good job with your brand, you do a good job describing what you do. When an advisor has a need and they trust and like you, they're going to show up on your calendar, right? You don't bang phones and trying to twist arms and say the magic words to get them to become a client. Right. It doesn't work anymore. That's 1995 or maybe 2005 stuff. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So, also, are you familiar with the DISC personality profile?
I am. Yeah. I don't know what mine is, but I'm familiar with it.
I'm going to guess that you are an I.
Okay.
So if you take the test, let me know if I'm right.
I have taken it a couple of times and I just don't even recall. So what is I?
I is, I'll tell you someone that we both know that is the biggest I that I know of, and that would be Matt Halloran. Okay. Life of the party, very excited.
So I'm not the extrovert that I come across on.
Okay.
As right. So I don't think I've come out of COVID yet. This is my basement, like my little in-law suite, right? So I office the in-law suite. We had an office downtown Daytona Beach with employees coming and going and stuff for a while. And all that closed with COVID. And I haven't rejoined society necessarily other than the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love this. I really do. I love working with you. I love working with the other group, the other Orbitz members.
Yeah.
Love working with our clients and our employees, our team. All of this brings me energy. At the end of the day, Callie, I go, so I'm kind of an introvert extrovert where I like being in front of the camera and I like working with others. Yeah. But it's exhausting a little bit, right? So,
and maybe you're an S like me. An S stands for steady, I think.
Okay.
I don't know, but
find
out and let me know.
I will. In fact, I'll take it this afternoon. I got a little time. I'll take the DISC assessment.
But the reason I was bringing it up is sales style is people respond to differently. I like you. I don't like the invasive calling me and pushy, but some people don't mind.
I think
not for me.
Okay, so I'm in my 50s. I'll give it that much. But I feel like I'm rare for my age, right? Because I did come up in a cold call cowboy. We'd put a program together for a Morgan Stanley I talked about earlier. Yeah. Those advisors got to opt into their website on Morgan Stanley's website. Banging phones, getting these Morgan Stanley advisors to buy a $25 a month website, right? Back many years ago when they had all been trained that way. Right. I think training at a major insurance, a major wirehouse is still a lot that way. Right. It's still a numbers game. And yes, that's right. But that's done differently now.
Right.
I feel like as our population gets younger or as younger people get older, however that's working, I feel like that is quickly fading, right? Yeah. People are going, you don't show up at the car dealership anymore having to be sold a car. In fact, as a consumer, more about the car you're going to buy than what the car salesman knows. Right. You're going there to make a purchase. People come to purchases now. They don't come to be sold.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's give people plenty of opportunity to engage with you, right? But trying to force that engagement.
Yeah. No pitch slapping.
No pitch slapping. Exactly. We run LinkedIn. We'll call it LinkedIn Assistant. Yeah. because we're on LinkedIn right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to do it right. You got to know that you're building a network and you're building a trust. And the person you connect with today may not be ready for your services for a year and a half.
Right.
And if you take an aggressive,
very common with advisors.
Yeah, right. But if you take an aggressive approach with them right now, they'll never be ready for your service.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, thank you, Charlie. We've run a little bit over. I think it was worth it, though.
Yeah, Kelly, it's awesome. I love this. Like, I really do. So I say that I'm more introverted than extrovert, but I feed off of this stuff too.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
It gives you excitement, but also you're tired at the end of the day.
I am. I got to go. Maybe there's some waves in the water, or maybe golf a little bit at the end of the day. But I will take a disc assessment for the day, as I promised.
Thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Charlie. And then for everyone watching, did you see last week's live stream about tracking the health of your marketing with metrics? If not, you can replay it here. And if you did see it, please let us know if you would be interested in a special course teaching you how to pull your metric numbers. You can leave a comment or email me. And then also, have you heard of the advisor email called Inside Information? Well, we're very excited to have Bob Varies of Inside Information with us next Monday to talk about mastering marketing trends. You won't want to miss this one. So until then,